What's up, Booktube? So today I am joining in on a summer Booktube event called Summer of Sport. Now, I don't know how long this has been going on, at least 2 years, but I came across Summer of Sport through Steve Donahue's channel, of course, and his reading of, I think, gay rugby romances. But this Summer of Sport is a booktube challenge for the whole summer where you just read sport-related books. And I think it was, or at least this year's host is Book Time with Elvis. So I'll link some videos down below. But disclaimer, if you don't want to hear about sports-related books or specifically baseball-related books, you don't have to watch. I absolve you of watching if you're a regular subscriber to my channel. Don't force yourself to listen to me nerd out about baseball. But going back to Summer of Sport, I don't think I would have ever read a sport book unless if I hadn't seen this challenge going around. And baseball is my favorite sport. I played it as a kid until high school, and I still follow it intermittently and go to Washington National games a few times a season. So I don't follow many sports, but if there was one for me to follow, it would be baseball. So the first of the two books that I read for my first entry of Summer of Sport, will there be more? I don't know. But I had a good time with these two. And the first entry, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it is called Smart Baseball by Keith Law. Subtitled, a very long subtitle, The Story Behind the Old Stats That Are Ruining the Game, the New Ones That Are Running It, and the Right Way to Think About Baseball. It's quite a mouthful. But Keith Law is a ESPN senior staff writer or something. He's been doing ESPN work for almost 20 years now. And Law is a big proponent of the new age statistics revolution that's been going on in baseball. You know, the whole thing with StatCast and sabermetrics and tracking everything that's not on the back of somebody's baseball card. Now, as somebody who kind of missed the whole StatCast era beginning, like I was alive. I was conscious, but I've never really understood the advanced statistics like WAR, WAR, and defensive runs saved, and I know OPS and slugging and on-base percentage, but Keith Law argues that a lot of the back of the baseball card stats suck. Like, they aren't indicative of a player's true value. And the ones that he goes into specifically are like runs batted in for hitters, batting average being less of a good indicator than on-base percentage. For pitchers, especially wins and saves, because those aren't really tied to, those are more of like circumstances of the game. They're forced circumstances. It's not what is happening each pitch. That's not determining the win or the save. It might be correlative, but if you're better, you will have more stats. But yeah, that and ERA being a little worse than some of the advanced stats. I thought this was a decent book. Keith Law, he's kind of a snarky writer. I've heard he's a polarizing figure in the baseball community, I think because he has strong opinions on statistics and analysis. But he writes fine. If you are already familiar with the StatCast revolution, the any of the advanced statistics or constructs, then this book won't give you anything. You might pull out your hair reading this book if you know things about baseball. But my being under a rock for like 10 years in baseball and just kind of having the cursory baseline knowledge, like, yeah, I know how to play the game and I know how the game works. I've known how the game works for 20 years. But the actual like in-depth statistics, like you need a master's degree to calculate these, I wasn't even tracking like what these things were. So this book was good for illuminating some of the more advanced level knowledge that teams use to evaluate players and to set their lineups now. Sorry, I got a text that Donald Trump bombed Iran. Uh-oh. All right, sorry, I got distracted by our military assault on a foreign country. Had to read up on that. So that's that. Anyways, back to books. Back to books, I guess. Can't really do anything here. It's what is there to do? But yeah, Smart Baseball. If you like baseball and you want to learn about stats, you should read it. If that doesn't apply to you, don't even think about this book. It's niche. It's niche. So that's book number 1 for Summer of Sport. Now we're going to move to book number 2, which is a biography from a historic American baseball player. And this is a Hall of Fame baseball player that never played in Major League Baseball. That being Josh Gibson. Josh Gibson. He was African American, black, player of the Negro Leagues. Not the Negro Leagues, Negro baseball leagues were not, it wasn't one single league. They were constantly being enacted and folding, and everything was happening there. They weren't totally organized like the one Major League Baseball for the white players in the early 19th century, early 20th century, in which the owners of the white teams had a gentleman's agreement. That's what it was called, where they didn't hire or they didn't sign black players to contracts. And it's called a gentleman's agreement because it wasn't, I don't think it was in the rule book that blacks couldn't play Major League Baseball, but the owners were gentlemen, and they shook on it. They shook on it outside of the rule book. So Josh Gibson, he was born in 1911 and actually died young at the age of 35 in 1947. But he became an adult in the cusp of the Great Depression, and he coming up from Georgia, him and his family moved to Pittsburgh, where Josh became a successful sandlot baseball player as a teenager. He was, I think, 6'2", 180, 190 pounds, really muscular, kind of stocky, just a strong man with the bat. And he had such power. Not that I saw it. I didn't see Josh Gibson play. Maybe in 1930, Steve Donahue saw Josh Gibson play, but I was not there. But the amount of power he had, they called him the Black Babe Ruth, and some people called Babe Ruth the White Josh Gibson. Was that an adequate comparison? I don't know. I don't know. That a lot of stories about Josh Gibson are mythological, apocryphal. They say he hit 800 home runs, but we don't know how many games Josh Gibson played because he wasn't in an official league really. He may have hit 800 home runs, but that total is not verified at all. And 800 home runs would maybe be the most in history. I think it would be the most in MLB history. But a lot of these games he wasn't playing against major league talent, so it's hard to say. Another myth is that Gibson hit a ball out of the old Yankee Stadium, which is pretty much confirmed to be impossible for a hitter to do with a bat. So that one's kind of been ruled out too. But lots of people just have Josh Gibson stories. And for most of the 1930s, Josh Gibson was the best hitter in Negro baseball. He was the guy. Satchel Paige, one of his teammates, was the man pitching, and Josh Gibson was the man batting. He also, as a defender, he played catcher. He was a good catcher and had a strong arm, but he wasn't some amazing backstop like Roy Campanella. I think he was known for better fielding than Gibson. But Gibson's still a dedicated defender, student of the game. He loved playing. He loved getting better. From what the primary sources, his teammates say, he just had a distinct childish joy for the game, and he didn't really know anything other than baseball because he devoted his whole life to baseball. But yeah, I didn't even introduce the book. It's Josh Gibson, A Life in the Negro Leagues by William Brashler. This was published in 1978. So William Brashler, he's kind of, from what I can tell online, he's like in his upper 70s. He's a Chicago area journalist who has written some books on the Negro Baseball League. Other than that, he doesn't have many works, but he's got a couple books. And Brashler, through various newspaper clippings and stats, and also interviews with Josh Gibson's surviving teammates. I think he interviewed them in the 70s. So these guys were, depending on when they were born, they weren't all of Gibson's age. Were in like their 50s to 60s, 70s, 80s. Some of them elderly, and they would reminisce to Brashler about Josh Gibson, and that's how he got a lot of his information. So in that vein, a biography like this about Josh Gibson can never be written again because all these people are dead now. Well, I'd have to assume, and if they're not dead, they're 100. But no, they have to be dead because if you were 15 and you played with Josh Gibson, you would be born in 1915. So that would be like the youngest player that could have played with him would be 110. So yeah, they're all dead. But I feel like this is not the best biography of Gibson himself. We learn a little bit about Josh Gibson, like his character. He was soft-spoken. He wasn't timid, but he wasn't a braggart or a showboater or anything like Satchel Paige was. But yeah, Brashler goes through Gibson's career great and how he traveled south to South Central America for the winter and all his stats and who he got traded to and blah, 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 blah. And he talks a lot about Gibson's teammates, like Cool Papa Bell and Satchel Paige and Judy Johnson and some other guys, Oscar Charleston. These are some Hall Hall of Famers from the Negro Leagues, MLB Hall of Famers, who Gibson played with, like on the Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords, which were a couple Negro League teams. But the actual learning about Josh Gibson, the is biographizing a word? Biographying? It could have been done better in terms of actually like showing the man in this time of racial discrimination, the horrible. Well, we know it's horrible, but he didn't get to play with the players that he should have been playing with based on skill because of hatred towards his skin color. So, I mean, we know how that is. That Gibson, unlike some of his teammates, he wasn't an activist for like, we need to be in the major leagues. Gibson just played with his bat. He talked with his bat, and nobody really recognized him for it outside of the Negro world. Some white owners did see him play and were like, wow. But these were the cowardly owners who wouldn't go against their brethren. Even if they liked Josh Gibson, they were scared to sign him to a contract. So in the end, Gibson died before even Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. Now, Robinson had been playing in the minor leagues when Gibson was alive, the white minor leagues. But by the time he made the majors, Gibson had deteriorated mentally and physically and died of a stroke at age 35. So he didn't even get to see Jackie Robinson play. And Josh didn't play either. So yeah, he was buried in an unmarked grave. And he laid there for like 30 years before somebody found out about it because they couldn't find his grave. And they had to go to the Undertaker. And the Undertaker had to search through his records just to find the plot where Gibson was buried. And oh crap. So yeah, kind of a tragic ending to one of the greatest baseball players ever. But while he was on this earth, the dude raked. He just hit and hit and hit. And even if he didn't hit 800 home runs, he was batting upper 300s, low mid 400s some seasons, just raking all the time. Any time of the day, any season, Josh Gibson was hitting. And did I like the biography? It was kind of dull. It wasn't a great book, but I liked, one, learning about Josh Gibson, because before I read this, I couldn't even have told you what position he played. And two, learning about how the baseball Negro Leagues were played. I knew nothing about Negro League baseball until this book. And it was really interesting to see how they operated and how they were different from like the major and minor league circuit of the Major League Baseball, which was white. And that was a more rigid hierarchy, whereas the Negro Leagues were all over. There's a term called barnstorming, where they would just go around the country and play exhibition games. And a lot of times that was more profitable than organizing a little league in like the Northeast or something. So, yeah, decent book. I don't know if you could find this anywhere. Maybe like thriftbooks.com or something, but I doubt this has been in print since like 1979. I don't know, I'm just making things up. But yeah. Anyways, those are my two entries for Summer of Sport 2025. Maybe I'll read some more sport books this summer because I had a good time with these first two books, even if they weren't great. I liked reading about baseball, so yeah. Thanks for watching if you did, and I'll see you in the next video.